Hi, I'm Tammy of The Siberian Wind, and I'm going to start working on my Nocturnal Soul Quilt Along. So let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is cut your pieces. So there's two blocks this week, and one is the lunar sliver block. And so I've got my background cut out following the instructions and following the template guidelines. And then I have my lunar slivers cut out, and it's this gorgeous, it's purple, but it doesn't show up very well in this camera, but it's a purple paisley print. So the first thing that they tell you in the instructions is to transfer your markings. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And what I do, because there's 3 different alignment markings, I actually have a white Chaco liner. It's a chalk roller pen, and it will leave just a white mark on your skin. It is just chalk. It's going to wash out easily. So what I do to mark my markings is I'm going to find my marking, and I'm going to fold my template back, and I'm going to leave a mark on the first piece. Okay, then I will find another marking, and I will do the same there. And I'm only making the marking about as deep as my seam allowance. You can make it larger with these because this will wash completely out. I don't use the friction pens because they tend to leave a little bit of residue behind, and I don't want that on my fabric. So I've got all 3 markings on my top piece, and let me see if they show up. Yes, they do. Ooh, they're spooky too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this to all of my other pieces, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have marked all of my pieces, and I'm going to start with my first one. So I have my outer piece and my lunar sliver of my purple here ready to sew. I am going to put my moon on top and get this sewn. I know my hands are kind of in the way, but what I'm doing is I'm sewing a few stitches and stopping with the needle down, and then I'm lifting my presser foot. This is one of those times that having a knee lift really comes in handy. And I'm just moving the fabrics around until I can get them to line up the way that I want, and then I'll take another couple of stitches and keep going. And there we have our first section. I'm going to press this and then I will be back and start working on the inner section that goes inside here. Okay, so we have officially sewn all 4 of our lunar slivers, and this is what mine look like. I did start and press. So after you've done all the curved piecing, sometimes your seams will not lay exactly flat. This is where starch really comes in handy. If you use best press or another fabric treatment, that might work as well. I use starch specifically. If you don't know me, or if you're new to my channel, I use starch. So, and I will be making some kind of starch alternative coming up soon when I run out. So stay tuned for that as well. But here are my lunar slivers. I've got 4 of them. And so they are going to go in the quilt as pictured in the quilt layout. So I've got these ready. So now it's time to do our stars. So let's get going. Okay, so we're going on to the star, and you have 2 different size pieces that make up your B and C pieces. So on your B pieces, you are drawing a diagonal line across the back, and I am using a pen so that you guys can see it. So you'll have a diagonal line, and then you'll be measuring and drawing your line for this. So let me measure my spot, because the directions will tell you how far your mark needs to be. And I can't give that out. But you're going to draw a line from your mark. Gotta be able to see mine. It's really dark on this fabric. And you're going to draw it all the way up to the corner. So you're going to draw a diagonal line on the back of your C. But again, and I apologize that it's super dark, but it's not going to be directly corner to corner. So pay attention to your directions as to how this is sewn. And once we have all of these sewn, then we're going to start sewing them together. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we have drawn our lines on our B fabric and our G fabric. So we're going to sew a diagonal following our drawn line. I'm just going to line that up. And I do hold my tail to get started, just because that's easier for me. So I'm taking my time and making sure I'm sewing exactly where I want to be sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and take my next G and my next B, and I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. And yes, I am right, B and G. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to continue to sew. I'm not going to take my pieces off until I have another piece on here. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've got so far. So this is your B, which is my purple, sewn to your G. And we're going to come in, we're going to cut this triangle piece here off and leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to be able to fold this piece out, forming this part of our star. We need to do 16 of these, so it's going to be a minute. Hang out with me. Okay, so we're going to attach we've got our B units sewn to our G units, and then we are going to add our C units. And when you are attaching your C unit, you want to follow the pattern directions, and you are going to attach it with your line that's drawn on here. Oh, this one's not showing up very well. Let me grab one that is going to show up. There we go. My fabric is an ombre, so there's different tones in it. So some of them are easier to see, some of them aren't. Here we go. All right, so this is offset. So my piece comes all the way out to here. However, my line starts here and goes up to here. So I've already got one piece on the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch along this line. And I will take the one off the machine here in just a second and show you what I've done. And make sure that you're following the alignment in the pattern, because you don't want to have to recut pieces because you sewed them incorrectly and you trimmed your seam allowance. So before you trim your seam allowance, you want to fold this back and make sure that you have your fabric all the way to the point, and then it's matching where it's supposed to match. And then you're going to trim your seam allowance, press open, and then you're going to trim this whole piece to the size written in the pattern. So don't leave it like this once you've got it sewn, because you've got this piece hanging off and this odd angle. So you want to make sure that you do that trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew the remaining pieces that I have and get them going. And then I'll go ahead and trim that seam allowance and press open and show you what I ended up with. Well, you know what I'm going to end up with, okay? But then I'm going to go ahead and trim it and get it from there, okay? So I will show you what it looks like after it's trimmed. Okay, so we've now assembled piece B and C to piece G. So this forms our star points for our witch fire star. So let's take it down to the table. I'm going to show you how this is going to lay out. And this is going to make a simple 9 patch, which is really easy and fun to sew. So this is my, let me see what the letter is. This is, it's not piece H. It is piece A. So this is my piece A. And these are my piece H's that are for the background. And so we are going to have 4 of our point pieces. And we are going to have 4 of our background pieces and 1 of our piece A's. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and sew them together. And we're just going to chain piece them because that's really super easy with a 9 patch. So there's that. And I'm going to put piece A there. And we're just making sure to stick to our 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So if you have a foot with a 1/4 inch guide, this is a great time to use that. If you're just getting used to sewing a 1/4 of an inch, if you are more advanced, I don't use a guide on the side of mine because I don't need it. Okay, so we've got our stars pressed in rows, but now we're going to sew those rows together. So all we're going to do is we're going to flip a row down and sew, and then we're going to sew all 4 because that's who I am. I chain piece everything. So we're going to sew all of those, and then we're going to come back and sew the other long seam on each of these as well. And because these seams are pressed open, if you want to just drop a pin in there to make sure your seams nest or your seams line up, then that is a great way to do that. They do want you pressing your seams open for this pattern, at least for this step. So we're going to press our seams open. And we're just going to take the extra time to line them up. And we're going to make sure that our seam stays flat as we sew over it. Let's get the rest of them done. Okay, so we are now done. I have got my lunar sliver blocks. These are going to go in the sashing, and these are going to go around the center block. So hang on to these. You can go ahead and put your sashing for those rows together. I'm going to hold off on doing mine, but you can absolutely put that together because you're cutting your sashing this week. And I also have my Witchfire stars ready. So these are also going to go in your sashing. These are going to go around the outer edges of your quilt. So you're going to see these at the corners. So the four corners of your quilt, you're going to see the Witchfire stars, and they are absolutely stinking adorable. I love them. So you've got two. Oh, let me grab all four of my lunar slivers. Grab them all four. And grab all four of my Witchfire stars. So you're going to have both of these blocks this week in addition to your sashing that you cut. You should also have a cutting layout if you want to pre-cut. That is always an option. I'm not going to do that because I'm working from my own stash, and some of these fabrics I don't have replacements for, so I'm going to wait until they come out each week. But this runs, the last edition is October 20th, so we will have our last issue of it on my channel coming out that following Friday. So again, this is Nocturnal Soul. It is a quilt along, and it is by Nocturnal Soul Stitchers, and is hosted by snugandstitch.com as well as compassandwildflower.com. So check the description box for some links and some more information about this video, and join me for the next several weeks. Bye!